I did want to hear on a more serious note, particularly from our Army veterans and from you, Pig, who's been in Poland, what your thoughts are and what's going on.
When I was in Poland, we actually had troops in Ukraine training people. This isn't something we've seen ahead of time, but we were still doing proxy war shit. We weren't really keeping things in the open with Ukraine. In Poland, we were very open. Hey, we're here because Poland was a part of NATO, still is. Ukraine wasn't. Originally, for Poland, we were watching Belarus the most because Poland was saying if Russia truly wanted to do something, they would put troops in Belarus to connect to Kaliningrad, which is their port, it's their territory, and they would basically have free access to just form a wall and do that number across Europe. So Poland, leading up to all this, has been warning NATO and warning the United States, hey, there, there's Russian troops in Belarus. Y'all might want to do something. So really, NATO was trying to speed up Ukraine's entrance into NATO. So if something did happen, they had complete justification to react. So right now, everyone's in a holding pattern NATO wise because they're being told not to, except our good friends of Poland. Poland is calling out Putin's bluff and is basically going to see if NATO will hold true because they are sending convoy after convoy of weapons and ammunition to Ukraine. So they're openly giving aid. So they're trying to call out Putin, who Putin threatened, hey, anyone helps, I'm coming at you too. And everyone else in NATO said, if you come at a NATO ally, we're coming at you. So Poland's like, all right, let's see if he's a man of his word. Because a lot of people don't realize this. Poland and Ukraine, I was shocked to hear about Ukraine. I knew Poland did, but there's a deep seated hatred toward Russia from both of these countries. Poland, mainly that's from the invasions, occupations from World War II. Ukraine is actually from the relationship they had during the Cold War. And I was shocked because it was like I kind of viewed Ukraine and Russia like Germany and Austria, cousins. It was right there. But Ukraine really does hate Russia. The total war aspect that's going on in Ukraine is totally the right move. Everyone gets a gun. They were training up civilians. I forget at what age, but they're just like from this age to this age, it's your duty to defend the homeland, which is a very smart move because that's really the only thing you can do to stop Russia because Russia has a very unique way of doing warfare. Cyber attacks and misinformation first, nothing but artillery and bombardments, then infantry and tanks that mop up what's left. A friend of mine, he suggested if you want raw and this raw, uncensored news footage from what's going on in Ukraine, go to Snapchat because they're just stories popping up. And it's pretty bad. My biggest concern right now, not necessarily just the civilian targets being attacked, Chernobyl being taken. That concerned me the most because that's actually a war crime. Because they bombarded it and they attacked it and took it over. So they have basically set up all this radioactive dust. There's now a radioactive dust cloud. They don't know where it's moving. People are trying to keep a track on it, but people are saying that it's a high level radiation. And I have no idea if this was it could have been on purpose. It's Russia. They're crazy. But what they gained to do that to this area, I don't know. I don't know if they're trying to use it as instead of using nuclear missiles, just kick up more of this dust and just see where the wind takes it. I couldn't tell you, but it is very worrisome. That's the most worrisome thing.
But doesn't it seem like the kicking up the dust, and clearly, yes, that is a side effect of the bombardment there, is a side effect. The real goal is the threat of what they could do
Yeah.
with Chernobyl if somebody were to try to come lodge them out. And it's the same sort of thing as having hypersonic missiles in Leningrad, like you were.
Yeah. And as far as I know, the reports I've read, there are Russian ground forces there holding that airport, holding that area, holding the people there hostage. So it's one of those things. Is that a backup plan? Hey, if you don't stop, we're going to kick up more of this dust and kill these people that could make it better. I don't know. It's very worrisome. It's also, I say this all the time, especially when it comes to nuclear war and stuff like that. You can't rule over an irradiated planet. It's always something that's I've seen as stupid. Like, I'll push the button, we'll all die. It's one of those
Well,
fallacies.
it is a fallacy, except from the perspective of a billionaire or someone with such means that they don't really care if the rest of the world burns as long as they're okay.
Yeah,
And that's Putin. So sure, yeah, go ahead and resist and do all that. I don't doubt that he would do what it takes to preserve his position, unless somebody stops him. Unfortunately, I think that history shows that a large number of Russians are not insane,
well,
particularly in their military.
well,
Uh,
and I'm glad you said that because it is confirmed a whole battalion surrendered from Russia. They just were like, "Nah, that's not what we're here for." Because even they are victims of misinformation, just like we are. Because Russia, the whole reason they're saying this invasion was that there were independent states in Ukraine that were claiming there was a genocide, and we gotta go help. They're our brothers, our family. We gotta go help them, and that was the whole fake justification for the invasion.
mhm.
But that's like you said, that's all we can hope for is that there are people with a conscience. There are people that are human beings, not drones, and see the bigger picture and do that. Just nah, no. So that's what I hope for, um, in a sense.
Neff, did you have anything you wanted to pitch in?
There was another TikTok clip of a Russian tank had run out of gas on the road, and it was filmed from the perspective of the Ukrainians that pulled up to it and said, "Hey, you want to tow back to Russia?" They're just laughing, you know.
But that's a very important point because I think I just read this afternoon that intelligence assessments are saying that the Russian supply chain is thin, particularly with regards to fuel for armored vehicles and transports, because they weren't necessarily expecting this to take as long as it's taking. So there's a definite weakness there.
Yeah, and that's why I applaud the Ukrainian president because he has not fled. He's still in country. He's still in the capital, and also I arming your people. Just be like, fight. If you love this place so much, fight for it. And he's definitely done a good job at igniting that flame of patriotism, nationalism for your home country. This is your city. It's not theirs. Get them. And I think it's one of those things, like you're saying, history shows us. It's like you have a guerrilla force of locals. They will, even without the technology, they can easily overcome and defeat a much larger force from home field advantage, but also just that drive to protect your home. So I do applaud all the efforts from Ukraine. I wish the U.S. would do more than just sanctions. It's a political theater, it's a political game. You have to play the game. I'm hoping Poland's bluff or Poland calling out Putin's bluff works because that would be hilarious. Just be like, yeah, he ain't gonna do nothing. But it is one of those things. Ukraine slowing down Russia definitely is a good sign. And I think everyone should recognize that it's like, hey, that wasn't supposed to happen. because people always it's like, oh, they just bring so many people, they'd swamp them. It's like, that little country the size of Texas is holding off this giant right now.
Yeah, David and Goliath for sure.
I gotta head out, guys. I guess my only 2 cents about it all is really leaders will always bump heads. And I know it's important to be a patriot, but for all you soldiers out there, just remember one thing: your first duty is to your family. And it always will be. Patriotism does not matter without that. So do your job to your family first, get them safe, and then take care of business. Y'all have a good night.
See you, Dave. Happy birthday. I guess when it comes to these are early days, and what we're seeing is what we're seeing. But what really matters is what happens if this goes on for a week or months. And certainly the flame is lit on the Ukrainian side, but sustaining that over the long term, if it's necessary, is almost impossible.
Agreed. And another thing, though, I would say is that their neighboring countries, Poland, Moldova, even, I think the support they've shown is pretty incredible because they've just opened their
Yep.
borders for refugees get in here, get safe. We have a friend of the family that's lived in Ukraine for half a decade, and they were trying to get their grandmother to safety. And it was just, of course, it's like how often can a text come through in a war-torn country
Mhm.
of this story and everything coming out. So we're trying to get here. Cars are back to back, running out of gas. It's, oh my God! It's, hey, we got my grandmother. We're on a bus. We're heading to Moldova. Later that day, we're in Moldova. We're safe. And for us, I would warn people: gas is gonna go up because we heavily trade with Russia for oil. That was not trying to say this presidency is a shame. I'm not. No, no, no. Trade deals were made after shutting the XL pipeline, which was done by the administration for environmental reasons, gas reasons. No one can see the future. That's why hindsight's 2020. So what I tell people is don't make excessive trips. Go to where you need to in your car. Stay ahead of it. Don't take more than what you need because there's other people that need it too. That's why the first days of the quarantine pissed me off so much with the toilet paper. It's like, why do you need all this toilet paper?
Yeah.
I need some Charmin too, god damn it. All right, I'm not doing that single ply shit. I served my time. But just remember there's other people that need this too. So don't go to the pumps and then pull out 15 little red cans. Don't be that guy. Just fill up your tank and go. Because that's what's going to make everything better. Of course, people in a panic are the worst. So all I hope is that our administration during this time goes, stay calm, get what you need. Just reassure people. And I think that's the best advice I can give. I'm not saying get a horse, ride a bike, buy an electric car or anything. Do what you want if you got the money, but for everyone else, just be
Find
considerate.
an electric horse.
God willing. Waiting on Ford to do that, the new Mustang.
That's right. A Pinto.
It explodes. Don't get on that.
That's right.
I
Got to
think
watch
it's-
those solar panels and those things. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's a nightmare. But yeah, that's at least here. And like I said, I don't have my final paperwork saying I'm officially out of the military. So it's one of those, my family's been like, oh my God, what can happen? And be like, what happens? I can't really,
Yeah, that's right.
you can't really
Uh,
do anything.
Yeah, but everyone's crystal ball is a little fuzzy right now.
It always is. It's one of those things, hope for the best, plan for the worst. And I hope calmer heads prevail. I hope diplomacy pans out. I hope Ukrainians basically bleed the Russians so much in this resistance that Russia just says, my bad, and pulls out, and that's the end of it. And everything else, ecologically wise, can be contained and maintained. That's best case scenario. I'm prepared for worst case. Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with having hope. Nothing wrong with hoping that the best comes out, that the best comes out in humanity, not the worst. I think would be the best thing to say.
Well, it's for once seeing the international community quite as unified and vocal about a subject as it's been recently is a bit of a refreshing. Not to mention local politics. Even the politicians can still find subjects to disagree about, within the things they agree about.
Yeah,
But nonetheless, there's broad agreement about what the response should be and how it's being done. Yeah, it's a little refreshing.
yeah. I forget who said the quote, but there's a gentleman that said, "I loved September 12th." So don't get me wrong.
Yes,
It's like September 11th.
yeah,
Don't get me wrong, was a terrible day in American history for my generation, younger generation. He said, but September 12th was so beautiful because everyone forgot their disagreements. They came together to provide help, prayer, just hope for a better tomorrow. And he was absolutely right.
I
You know,
agree.
there's this great tragedy, but everyone came together to make things right. So all I can hope is things are made right with Ukraine and Russia. And there's
And
been nothing short of heroes and heroics going on. And it's one of those things you can only hope that these legends spur hope on. And maybe this does come to a quick end peacefully.
yeah, so some of the stories that are coming out, I think the one that sticks with me the most is the story of the 13 leper guarding an island, Snake Island, and their reaction to being attacked. That they all perished for it, but nonetheless, that defiance. That reminded me of the Bastion, the 101st Airborne, their reaction to being surrounded in World War II. Nuts.
I
So, yeah,
Yeah, that just that defiance, like I said, that's what makes legends. That's what spurs people on. There was one gentleman, he was near Crimea, and they were tasked with, if anything happens, you blow this bridge, and they were mining it, and he realized he wasn't going to make it and cross in time, and just said screw it and blew it as the tanks were getting on. I mean, it's selfless service, it's self sacrifice, and it's unfortunate his life ended through actions of Putin. But like I said, that defiance of, if my life saves hundreds,
and it inspires others to
to
carry
do the
on.
same.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Another fun one, of course, this one's really full of debate. The Ghost of Kiev. If this one, he is a fighter ace. They're claiming he shot down 4 to 6 Russian MiGs in one day during the open engagements. There's already shirts being made, planning on buying 2 of them. Someone actually made like a Ace Combat game cover called, Ace Combat 6 Ghost of Kiev.
Mhm.
But that one's very interesting, interesting developments on that end. But I would definitely say for people that geopolitically think that the U.S. doesn't need to be involved, or want to argue that America isn't without sin. I'm not saying America has not done wrong in the past when it comes to wars, and very recently we had a very tragic situation pulling out from Afghanistan that happened through miscommunication and everything. But I would urge people to look at some of these Snapchat stories. Some of them are very brutal, some of them very honest. I saw one woman's filming from her house, and you see a Russian MiG coming in unloading missiles at the house next to her. It's one of those things that's happening to children, to innocents, so people that shouldn't be targeted at all in war. Russia doesn't care, and I think the more people that see this, the more people get angry at Russia. And even Russia's own people are protesting in the streets right now. There, of course, awful things are being done to them for that. To them, keep doing it. Show them that's how you show the government who's truly in charge. If you don't agree with it, show your voice. I'm a very huge fan of protesting. I think that's the greatest act that the population, the civilian population, can do to their governments to show, hey, you don't control me, and here's why.
I remember not long ago
That's
when
one extreme to the other.
Highest form of public service.
wasn't
What?
one of Russia's missile batteries used to shoot down one of those Malaysian airlines by accident.
Yeah, that was a few years back in eastern Ukraine. But
Yeah.
to your point about the Snapchat, my dad, journalist, and he was a reporter for Stars and Stripes in the Army, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And he made a comment about Vietnam is that the public's tolerance for war changed in Vietnam because of television, because the war was brought to you live. And that changed everything.
It does. It's very, the adage, ignorance is bliss. It's easy to say, oh, that's happening over there. How does that affect me? But when you actually see who it's affecting, it does change you. It does make you go, wait a minute.
Yeah, this is not glorious flags and knights on shining armor on horses. This is children, kids, husbands, wife had nothing to do with anything, just getting slaughtered in the street just on purpose or not. Yeah, it's not good. Okay. Yeah, I think we have a kind of a broad appreciation and respect for the Ukrainians and what they're trying to do. And it's almost institutionalized. All of us we're Americans. We know, this or that about American history, but the idea of standing up to an invader and for your own freedom is almost in the blood. So it's very impressive to most Americans what's going on in Ukraine.
Yeah, and I think, because like I said, we had people sent down there to train, to assist in building up their armed forces. A lot of us were very bitter about how Afghanistan ended because I knew a lot of people. Two of my cousins were part of the groups that trained the Afghani army. And it was definitely one of those things, seeing how that turned out. It's like, that was a waste of my time. And you just feeling bitter about that. And I was just, when all this was happening, it's like, oh Lord, don't let it happen again, because then there's going to be so many people. It's like, why do we help anyone else? Which that is the worst thing that America could be like, is why are we helping anyone? Because even though we have our own problems, we still need to be like that light on the hill for the rest of the world. Everyone, to most people looking outside, it's, wow, everyone in the world hates us. And I said, that a lot of people do, but I'll tell you, once we had a German guy literally come up to us and said, I don't like you, but I'm grateful for you, because the world needs a police, and it can't be us. It has to be you. And I think our history, though not perfect whatsoever, we're seen as this oddity in the world. And what we've been able to do in such a short amount of time blows people's minds. And what we've been able to do militarily has done the same. And so people see us as this modern day myth, modern day legend. Like, it's Americans. We're known wherever we go. Doesn't matter if we were in uniform or not. The Polish knew we were Americans just by how we walked. We didn't have our heads down. We looked up. People know who we are. We are seen as inspiration. I think anything that we could do to give inspiration to others to fight and continue resisting or standing up for what's right is probably the greatest thing we can give to the world, besides parachuting 75th Ranger Group into Ukraine while blasting America, fuck yeah, on loudspeakers. If that becomes necessary, then yes, but I think until that point is reached, we need to do everything we can to give inspiration, to give hope. I think to remind people we're playing a political game, but we're right here. It's one false move, and we're going to be there. Because I know 101st is in Poland right now. There's a few other units that have been activated. I know there's a Marine unit that's activated. Of course, we have a naval strike group in the Mediterranean right now. So we're there. We're close. One wrong move, what we got there is going to go off and everything else is going to shift that way. But I will say for our military command, don't forget about Alaska. Keep an eye on that. But that's just me. Don't forget to lock the back door.
Don't
Sarah
forget about
Palin's got that
Alaska
covered.
again.
Don't forget the back door real quick. Don't send everything. Watch that real quick. I think a few.
Well, that one fellow that with binoculars out on the Aleutians, give him a radio. It's like, they're coming,
I can't tell if it's ships or icebergs.
but
Do
they're
we got-
big.
We got crab fishermen out? No? Uh-oh. I think it's one of those things I think a lot of people don't realize. We've actually fought Japanese soldiers in those islands out there in Alaska. It's not far-fetched. Russia's got enough people; they could easily do it. And they've been testing us for years out that way. It's one of those things. I think ever since Putin became president of Russia, it's almost like the Cold War was back on, like Cold War II, the remix.
That's exactly correct, because he himself is a Cold Warrior guy in charge of KGB in Eastern Germany for back in the day. Okay. That's the guy running Russia. Right.
It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
in who does anyone speak ill of him? They don't. They actually become deathly ill themselves. Huh.
Go figure.
Weird. Some in the water. But yeah, I think if everyone here just keeps calm heads in the midst of a possible fuel crisis and continued inspiration support is given to Ukraine, and if necessary military support, I think things will be for the better. This is definitely one of those situations. Long term is bad, short term good. The sooner the better for everyone. Yeah, Russia will be pissed and they'll be beaten back. The bear remains a threat, but it shows he's not as powerful as he thought he was. Just having numbers don't count. Quote from C.S. Lewis. Numbers aren't everything, but they sure help. But that's my 2 cents from a salty veteran. I'm ready to go on a Ukrainian vacation if need be. Road trip. Family truckster with a M2 mounted on top. Have a good time.
That's a hell of a road trip.
Yeah. But that's how I see it. There's no perfect solution to this, but there is hope. So anyone out there that's and TikTok doesn't help. Getting World War III it's not there yet. I think if best case scenario happens in Ukraine, there won't be a World War III. The bear will be retreat back to its cave, sore, wounded, lick its wounds, and the chessboard's reset and we start again. That's just how it always goes. So,
But when it comes to wars in progress, the question always is, who can stop it? How can it stop? Does anyone have the ability to say, okay, we're done? And you look through the list of people on the Russian side that have that capability, and it's fairly narrow.
Yeah.
Most of them have no inclination to go against Putin. So it boils down to that, what we talked about before, some people that of conscience that realize that what's happening is probably going to hurt them, their people, Russia, more than it hurts anybody else, to actually put a stop to it by whatever means they can. So I have my doubts that Putin will ever try to stop it, because he doesn't care.
yeah, he's definitely not going. I think the only way he would is if he knows it's a lost cause at this point, which he'll do what he always does. He'll set traps, leave, and reset the board. That's what everyone like that's done before. I do think it is people with a conscience coming to and communicating that with others that feel the same way and realizing, hey, there's more of us than them. He won't stop on his own. Maybe we need to stop him. I forget the name of the operation. There was a group, I think it was Operation Overlord in World War II, where a lot of high ranking
Yep.
Nazi officers were like, we got to kill Hitler. Unfortunately, they failed, but the fact that they tried speaks volumes. They went against the Fuhrer, the guy that made people's families disappear. I'm not trying to make a comparison to Putin to Hitler, but Putin definitely is a tyrannical leader who makes opposition disappear. I think if people realize, hey, I don't like this, you don't like this, they don't like this, let's put Putin to sleep.
It probably wouldn't be beyond the ken to compare Putin to Stalin, because that seems to be where he's headed.
Yeah, that's probably a better comparison.
Yeah. But nonetheless, dictatorial, authoritarian.
Yeah.
Checking all the boxes.
It's like, yeah, if it fits, it ships.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah,
So there's a, from the perspective of us, there's really not much we can do as individuals, but yeah, still a lot to hope for.
yeah, it's just one of those, and until America is called upon through the deals and sanctions that we've done to physically fight. Like I said, the only thing we can hope for is that Ukraine holds. They're strong. Their resolve doesn't break. They continue to get support, and maybe people on the Russian side see this for what it is, which is just a slaughter, just an illegal invasion to slaughter, and spark something off that shouldn't be sparked off, and see, hey, this ain't right. That battalion, I mean, they that's a lot of people that make up a battalion. If that is a true story, if that is confirmed, that takes a lot of balls. I'll be very honest. They went against their country. They wouldn't be welcomed back. They're exiles. That takes a lot to say this isn't right, and we know it's not right. We didn't come here to kill civilians. So I know a lot of people be like, "What?" An infantryman saying, "Yeah, it's okay to surrender." Yeah, for the right cause. Yeah, there's no glory in killing innocents. There's none. People always think about being in the military is like being in the Roman legions. Glory to Rome. Remember, it was glory to Caesar for once. What you did meant nothing. What they do means nothing. It just matters to Putin. So it's one of those things. I'd have to look through my phone. One of the greatest building art I've ever seen was in Poland. They painted Russian soldiers, but they painted them like wooden puppets. Remember, you're being used, and that's a hard mentality to break in the military. Is that you still are an individual. They try to break the individual so you become a unit, but it's what makes you individual that makes you a cohesive unit. So it's one of those I don't know how the Russian conducts its military, but for them to see beyond the Russian flag just like being shot into their eyes to see the true nature of what this is and the brutality of it, and that's not right. I applaud them. I hope they're taken care of. If they wish to fight for Ukraine, even better. If they wish to flee, let them. But that's courage. That is something I really was not expecting. So it's one of those I have to take it with a grain of salt. Is it too good to be true? Could it just be propaganda? If it's true, that's amazing.
If it's true.
If it's true. So if that did happen, that's awesome. If not, one can hope. One can hope that it does happen.
E or C, did you have any comments?
No, largely withhold for the lack of information.
And D?
Not really. Not really. I missed quite a bit of that. I dozed off during the game.
We fought a demon, and Tiger got to chew on a wizard for a while. Tiger chew toy. Okay. Everybody, thanks for your thoughts on that. I don't really have much more to add. I think Peg summed it up pretty well. I guess the only thing I would throw in that might be a newer, different thought is I'm troubled that Ukraine has to bear this burden alone, almost alone. And I do say almost alone because it is true that they are getting some supplies and aid for the rest of the world, but it's not where it matters now. Yeah, they're basically on their own for a while. It's a hard burden. It's hard to watch. It's like watching somebody that you really wish you could help, but yeah. So we'll see. It's also going to be pretty hard for the folks in Russia. Folks that didn't choose this are going to be victims of some of the worst sanctions ever levied against a country in history. So nobody's happy today.
Yeah, and speaking of sanctions, it's one of those, if the best case scenario happens, maybe ease off on a few, because the deadliest animal is a starved one, because that's when people act out irrationally. Now,
Oh, Iran?
No,
That
it's a
too.
man bear pig.
the worst kind of a bear, man and pig.
Mhm.
But no, I would agree wholeheartedly with you, Matt. To me, it pains me to see people we met and helped be alone for right now, and it sucks. And it's one of those. I get it. It's a political game. You can't, run in there recklessly, because then Russia be like, "See, it's exactly what I'm talking about." That the victim game, and it's one of those. It sucks, and you can only hope that what you do can help, and hope, like I said, that resolve doesn't break. But it is a very, yeah, like you said, it does suck for the Russian people as well. That is, people don't think there's always innocents getting hurt, no matter what side.
All right. Gents, thanks for all that.